Hello, in this video you'll learn how to use MudBlazor charts in Blazor.net 10. In this case, probably in the future it will be similar, although those versions do change and all the versions might be sort of in some ways completely different. Specifically in this video we'll cover line charts. If you want more information, watch upcoming videos on other chart types, and also you can watch the previous video on how to set up all those tables, the more advanced ones, and also how to set up MudBlazor in general. Now, before we get started in the actual code of the chart, let's take a look at the bit of a setup. What we have here, we have MudBlazor, and again, there is a separate video for how to set it up and how it all works and all that. But essentially, you install your MudBlazor, you go to mudblazor.com, reference all the steps. That's the best way to do it, because there might be updates, there might be different things. Then in program.cs, you inject the mud services. You don't need to add any additional things here. If you're using MudBlazor already, there is no additional library, anything like that. But you do need to do that sort of general setup in the app.razor, or in older versions it would be home.cshtml, but it might be a bit different, the code for the charts, but the setup would be in that sort of same regard. We have a CSS, we have MudBlazor JS, and then we just have also, let's go to main layout.razor. We have all these components added to the main layout, Mud theme provider, MudPaper. We don't actually need most of this for the charts, but it's good to just include everything. It doesn't hurt at all. So this is the setup. Now let's take a look at the actual charts and how we can set them up. For this particular exercise, we will just use the home.razor. No components needed. It is a very straightforward component, really. You just kind of have to know what to place there and how to modify things. So let's just do a simple, perhaps MudContainer. The main layout, as you saw, isn't fancy at all. It's just a very basic arrangement. So this will essentially sit in the middle of the screen and won't really do much. And just so we have a bit more sort of area covered in the page, just so it looks a bit better, and you actually want to use it at some point, we don't sort of misrepresent the beauty of this whole arrangement. Let's just do line chart, which it does suggest to me. And then let's do typo, something like typo H4. Typo, not type. Terrible suggestions today, but let's do something like H4. Doesn't really matter. The color doesn't really matter as well. We can add the gutter bottom. If you want to learn more about these components or other videos on this channel, there is a previous video on this particular channel. You can watch how you can actually override in many sort of more advanced ways to override all the CSS classes and all those things. But in order to have a line chart or any chart at all, we will be using a MudChart component. But the main thing about charts, where we're using this, or even if you work in JavaScript libraries, you need to place it somewhere. And while the setup of a chart can be very tricky and very difficult on its own, most of the time the biggest trouble is where to place it. Now with MudCharts, it's kind of easier, because the easiest way is really to place it in something like MudPaper, or if you're using container layouts and you want a more sort of a flat arrangement, perhaps inset arrangement into your whole background, then you put it in MudItem. But essentially you have to define those areas for the chart to live in, because again, the chart is sort of like a table. It can't really become too small on smaller screens, so you need to account for that as well. Do you have lots of small ones or one big one, whatever it might be? So now let's get to the actual MudChart. But before we do that, we need to set up the data, because without the data, it's not gonna look very pretty and we're not gonna be able to see anything. So that's where it kind of gets tricky, because you need to sort of two pieces of data. The first one is essentially the series, so that's your values. But then you'll need to create the labels for the x-axis or for the y-axis as well, but probably it will be for only for the x-axis. Now in this case what we're doing is a simple sales chart, sales forecast essentially. So existing sales and the forecast, we're comparing or essentially backtesting the forecast in this chart. So we will have two lines that we can compare, and we will try to add some options to them as well. Now I do have some data already prepared because, as you now see, it is kind of heavy. So first of all, just a little string for, not a string, an array of string actually, for the actual dates, because we will have this amount of dates, and this amount of dates needs to match the arrays of the actual values that we provide. It's going to be an array of doubles, so the length of this array needs to match the other one. However, you will see this one is just an array and it will go in one place, but the actual values for the chart, they are set differently. So that's where there can be quite a bit of confusion. Now, for that, we'll need a list, and specifically a list not of arrays, not of something like this, but of chart series. Let's see if we can do that. Chart series like that. So now we can have the chart series, and let's call it sales series, because that's what it is. We're comparing or backtesting sales. So let's see if the suggestion works. It sort of does. I will remove this for now. I do have some data prepared just so it fits perfectly. But we have chart series, and that's what we will assign to the actual component, which is MudChart component, which you will see in a second. But we need some data. So the data isn't just a simple array. We can add a few options, not too many. And one thing I can say right away, if we go here just to take a look at the properties, you'll see we do have fill opacity, but we don't have anything, say, color related. You can change that. We'll take a look at that later. It's a bit weird how it's done, but it is what it is. So we have this array. We don't need such a large one for sure. Sales is okay, but I'm gonna just paste my data that was prepared already. It's a nice sort of view of the whole thing. So we have the sales data. Now we have we need our predictions, essentially, our forecast. We can call it a more professional way to do it. Let's say forecast, and where's my other set? I'm just gonna take the other set. And at this point, we have all the data ready. So you see, this is the actual values, the lines that you will see in a chart. And these are x-axis names for each value, or the time periods for each value. So it could be months, days, whatever you want to set, of course. Now, actually assigning it, let's do that. Let's do a little, let's see, MudChart. Like this, just a simple one without any sort of additions, because we want to go sort of one by one. The first thing you want to decide on is the chart type. There's many options, and as you can see, there's chart options. We'll get to that as well. But chart type is, of course, the most important. These are predefined in this very nice struct here, or enum rather, not struct. And we have bar, donut, heat map, not a lot of options. Of course, if you want very advanced charting, you would need to probably use JavaScript library. Blazor options aren't really all that available in terms of that, even the paid ones. But as far as any option for Blazor charts go, this does offer most of those basic and some of the even more advanced options, so it's certainly quite usable. Now, in this case, we're not using bar, we're not using pi, we're using lines. So now we have the chart type, so we can assign the actual options or values. And unfortunately, it's not as straightforward. Maybe it is to some extent straightforward, but it's not data, it's not value. The actual values will be chart series. So we have this list, And remember, it is a list, it's not a array. We use array for the axis values, or names, or labels rather, the correct word would be. But then we use a list for the actual data. So now we could actually launch at this point. It should work perfectly fine, I believe. But let's just add the names as well, the labels. That's going to be axis labels. And that's where these days will go in. So we have that ready. Let's launch the application. Let's take a look at that. Then we will add a bit of styling, some styling option. Essentially, we'll try to change the colors, which can be extremely tricky because you need to sort of go around that. But let's take a look at this for now, and let's see how the colors change. So at this point, we have a very nice chart. As you can see, it works perfectly fine. We have our labels, we have our values, we have our tooltip, as you can see. You can change that and modify a bit the tooltips and all those things. It does get a bit tricky. So the main thing, the suggestion would be, at least the main thing you want to look at is the actual colors to fit your theme. You can change the typography as far as general typography goes. And again, if you want to learn more about sort of customizing MudBlazor styles, watch the previous videos. Always there, and you can see all the overrides that are available easily and not so easily for the MudBlazor. So this is the option that we have. Now we can get back to this page and just a few little style changes. Let's do. You probably saw the actual chart doesn't cover the whole MudPaper because it's kind of, it fits as it fits and it's all good. So you can set the width, and you can set the width not in some random numbers, but as you would in styles. And we get a little suggestion for height, so let's take the suggestion for height. Now for the colors, the interesting part. What you need is chart options. So it's not going to be your line colors, essentially won't be in the series, which would be perhaps the more appropriate way to find them and the easier way to modify it. But what you create is chart options. Let's see. You can add some options, and the suggestions, of course, are wrong because it's MudBlazor. But what we do have is this ChartPalette. And you can use perhaps a more generic one. You can establish your own that is reusable between different charts, which is a good idea to some extent. Unfortunately, the actual setup is a bit weird. We have new string. Essentially, we'll have array of colors. Now, I do have a couple of colors prepared. Let's take those just so we can actually see a difference, because I'm not sure what the suggestion actually is. It's sort of very similar, I think. But we have the chart palette and we have two colors, and they will correspond to the list here. So the first color will be applied to this chart series, this line essentially that will be, these numbers will represent. And then the second one will be applied to this one. Again, it's a bit of an inconvenient way to do it, and if you have more series, it can get kind of tricky, but the rest will be automatic, and you can sort of play around with some ways to perhaps jump from one to the other or generate more colors as you go along. Again, not the most convenient way perhaps, but it is what it is. Of course, this way it is perhaps easier to do dynamically, although assigning it to chart series would be perfectly fine, but that option does not exist. However, what we do need to add is the chart options. We need to declare the chart options here. Let's see if we can do that. Options. We don't need that at sign, I believe. That's in the old days of Blazor. And now we should have the nice colors. We should have it fitting a bit better. So let's launch it again and take a quick look. So now, as you can see, the colors have changed. The sort of layout has changed as well, because we did that 100% width. Now it sort of fits quite finely inside the mud paper, more likely in the middle. But the colors are different. The tooltip color is different, as you can see. So that's how you change the color. Now, if you want other options, you can explore in the chart option. There are some in the series as well. If you want to learn more about Blazor, watch MudBlazor and Blazor as well. Watch the previous videos on this channel. If you're interested in minimal APIs, perhaps if you need that sort of quick interaction with some route in your Blazor projects, a great way to do it is with new minimal APIs with .NET 10. We cover just a basic setup and form validation or validation for the minimal APIs, as well as quite a few tutorials on MudBlazor, and there will be more coming on different chart types and different arrangements, so follow the channel and take a look at those. And with that said, we will conclude this video.